Disclaimer: the following content is entirely fictional and does not represent real events or people. This material has been edited and adapted from the channel Beyond the Page. Walking through the hallway. My body was racked with nerves. Everyone knew what happened. And while it was the best thing they had witnessed in all of their lives, it happened to be the most heart-shattering thing to happen to me. I kept my head down as I sped down the hall. It wasn't surprising that everyone knew what just went down only moments ago. All I wanted to do was disappear. My cheeks red in embarrassment as I attempted to hide it from the eyes that were focused on me as I continued to speed through the crowded hall. Get me out of here. Did you hear? I heard a girl in front of me snicker, nudging her friend with her elbow as I passed by. My wolf senses heightened my hearing. And while I could have simply blocked my senses, I couldn't help but listen in. She is Hayden's mate. The girl beside her gasped, before muttering a quiet sound of disgust. Poor Hayden. From behind me, I heard the first girl giggle at her friend's reaction. Oh, don't worry about it. He rejected her. No way. In front of everyone. The girl laughed. You should have been there. Her face was priceless. I could hear both girls laugh with each other, laughing at me before the friend spoke up again. What did she expect? The girl is a waste of space. I cringed away, finally blocking my heightened senses as my pace sped up, and I was almost running out of the building. As I made it outside, I broke into a sprint with the want to get away as fast as possible. I felt my wolf breaking inside of me, howling for our mate. I wanted to scream. I could still feel the pain of being rejected on my birthday. I wish I had never walked into that lunch hall today. I wish I had never caught the smell of honeysuckle and lavender, the most alluring smell to me. I knew that every second that I had found my mate. Once you hit the age of 16, it gives your wolf the ability to recognize our mate's scent, and it being my 16th birthday today, I could finally find my mate. I've always wanted a mate. I wanted a mate to drag me away from this pack, this world that I was currently living in. Ever since my parents had passed years ago, I've been the butt of every joke. Everyone believed it was my fault that my parents had passed, the facts of which pained me to even think about. My parents were loved. My father, being the beta of the pack, meant that he held a lot of pride and he was given a lot of respect from the pack. Having died an unnatural death hit the pack hard, and while they comforted my brother, Lane, I was a different story. They hated me for my parents dying, for them losing a large part of of their own family. Hell, sometimes I hated myself too. Since then, the pack has thrown everything at me. They all hated me. The only person that didn't throw such aggression at me was the alpha. It was the alpha way to be kind to his pack. However, that cannot be said about his son Hayden. Before I could get far, I slammed into another body which sent myself to the side, slamming harshly on the ground with nothing to break my fall. Jesus! I heard from above me. Looking up, I saw the familiar face of my brother. Lane. Lane. Are you fucking serious? Reese. Are you seriously incapable of using your fucking eyes? He snarled, looking at me in disgust. Just like the pack. My own brother blamed me for our parents' death. I'm sorry, I stuttered out, pushing myself off the floor, knowing that I clearly wasn't going to get any help. Lane glared, watching as I lifted myself off of the floor. You really are good for nothing, aren't you? He scoffed at me, crossing his arms over his chest. Or what were you going running out of school? Think you're too good for it now? He raised an eyebrow at me and I held back on a snarky retort. I didn't want to anger him. I had to get out of here. Okay. I huffed, rubbing my upper arm to distract me from the uncomfortable air between Lane and I. Lane's eyebrow was still raised as he waited for me to continue. I rolled my eyes, puffing up my cheeks in irritation before responding. I found my mate. Lane's eyes bulged large before he spurted out a laugh. Wow. He breathed out, strolling past me with a jibe at my shoulder with his own. I refused to turn to him as he walked off. Instead, I held my head high. I was ready to walk off and forget that Lane was even here before I heard him speak again. Poor guy might as well reject you quickly while he still can. My eyes bugled large. If smoke could come out of my ears, they would be a chimney by now. I felt my wolf angrily shake within me, growling, and this time I let my wolf's growl be heard. You fucking bastard. I snarled, sharply turning my body to face my dreadful brother. His eyes were wide, registering what I had said, before narrowing his eyes at me. What did you just say? I called you a fucking bastard, I repeated, stepping closer to my older brother as I bared my teeth. Because that's what you are. A disgusting, downgrading piece of shit of brother and a fucking bastard. Lane's mouth fell open. I could sense how angry he was by the face. His face was slowly turning red. He growled at me angrily, stepping close much as I did moments ago. Close your words closely, pup, he threatened. You know what? I've had enough of your disgusting behavior. I don't have to deal with your bullshit anymore. I'm not someone you can push around because you're bored. I'm your fucking sister. I am the only blood you have left because instead, you choose to stand with your pack. The same pack that turned their back on a grieving 6-year-old girl who had just lost their parents. And the only person that I could trust to stand by me. My own mate. I've found him, and you want him to reject me. You want him to reject to what? Push me to the fucking edge. Lane was silent as I spoke, just watching me with his emotionless eyes. He didn't care about what I was saying. He didn't have to listen to this because anything I say was going straight over his head. Nothing I say will change the way I've been treated and how I will be continued to be treated. You know what? I sighed, feeling deflated as I watched Lane unaffected. I'm done. I shrugged, stepping away from Lane. There'll be punishments for opening your mouth, pup. Lane called out to me as I made a distance from him. I know there will. I just won't be here to take it. I breathed in the clear air as I laid on the ground, my feet dangling into the lake below me. The air always smelt better out of the territory, even though Jared hates when he finds out I've been lingering outside the border, knowing how dangerous it could be with rogues lingering around constantly. Especially now. There have been sightings of rogues within each corner of the border. The border control had their hands full. I sighed lightly, the wind hitting my face giving me a light breeze. What a feeling to be free. A growl snapped me out of my thoughts, my head snapping back to see a mahogany-colored wolf far from me, inching closer. A rogue. Instantly, I was on the attack, jumping up from my position and crouching down as I stared down the wolf. You shouldn't be here. Rogue. I spat the word rogue out with such disgust. Rogues were disgusting pieces of work. Having been kicked out of your own pack takes a toll on your wolf. And slowly but surely the pain of being ripped from your pack and pushed aside by fellow wolves can drive your own crazy. Soon enough, the rogued wolf becomes bloodthirsty, and will rip apart anything and everything that gets in its way in order to survive. Typically, a rogue's strength doesn't equal to the strength of an ordinary pack member. However, with the intense need to kill, they become more dangerous than ever. The rogue in front of me snarled at me. Stepping closer. Shift. I growled, baring my teeth at the packless wolf. The wolf ignored me as it jumped in the air, launching itself at me. Quick on my feet, I dodged out of the way of the wolf bullet, gliding to the other side as the wolf ended up dropping into the lake behind me. I spun around to face it, backing away to have space between us, quickly glancing behind me to ensure that there weren't any other rogues lurking behind me. While rogues are kicked from their own packs, they can actually form a whole new pack. However, it tends to be unlikely due to the fact that their wolves feel almost PTSD before the betrayal of their own pack that they would prefer to be alone than risking getting betrayed once again. The wolf jumped from the lake, growling aggressively at me. Fine. Be like that then. I snarked, watching the wolf begin to lunge at me one more time. This time I met the wolf in the middle, shifting in mid-air. My wolf felt thrilled to feel the rogue's shoulder within our grasp, our teeth snapping down. The rogue whimpered as we gripped its shoulder with our fangs. During strength, I pulled down with my jaw tightened on the meat of his shoulder, which resulted in the rogue being thrown in the tree beside me. Its body fell to the ground and was slow to jump back into action as blood oozed from its shoulder. I didn't waste time as I growled at the weak wolf, jumping up and landing on the rogue's back. The rogue shook about, attempting to push me off. However, I had plunged my claws into the body, and my fangs were once again into its body, this time clinging onto the meat on the neck. The rogue was viciously shaking as it continued to shake me off, but I wouldn't budge. The rogue let out a cry of pain as I pulled on his neck with my fangs, ripping part of the meat off. In immense pain, the rogue's legs buckled under pressure, and they fell to the ground, shifting into human form. Underneath me was a young man, filthy almost as if they had not been in human form in a long period of time. It almost made me feel bad. Almost. The young man turned underneath me, his eyes bloodshot red as he stared at me. I shifted back into human form, and waited to see if he would say anything. However, instead he spat upwards, aimed straight at me as I stared back. Bitch! He snarled at me as he lazily attempted to push me away. I growled lowly, wiping off his spit in disgust before baring my teeth at the weak wolf below me, swiping my claws in the air and down across his face. Soon enough, the rogue was dead, just like it was before. The woods were once again quiet as I pushed off of the rogue's dead body and strolled back to my previous position, dipping my feet back into the cool lake water. I let a small smile creep on my face as I glanced back at the dead body before it quickly fell, and I rolled my eyes in irritation. Jared was going to have it out with me, I muttered to myself, slapping the water beneath me. Annoyed, I strolled through the pack house, moving quickly as I made my way to the restricted floor where only the alpha, beta and gamma live with their family if they choose to live within the pack house. Walking, I smiled in content as I looked around me. 3 years and I still look around like I'm new to everything. I simply couldn't help but feel overwhelmed and just thrilled to have found a pack that cared when me the way the Golden Redemption pack had. My thoughts were cut short when I walked through the upper-level living room to witness the alpha of the pack, Jared, snuggled close to his Luna and mate, Nicole. Disgusting. I coughed out in a jokey manner, causing the couple to turn their heads to me. I winked at the two before planting myself in the love seat to the side of them. "Hey lovebirds," I chirped up, blowing a kiss to Nicole, who in response caught it with her fist and tucked it into her shirt. Jared rolled his eyes, however his arm unconsciously tightened around her shoulder. "How you been, baby?" Nicole asked, naturally curling up to her mate. These two were the most lovable couple. They almost didn't even seem like the leaders of their own pack. Jared smiled down at her, placing a kiss on her head before responding. "I've been." Nicole quickly shut him up, turning her head to him in confusion, which caused him to realize his misstep. He huffed, rolling his eyes. "And you were talking to Reese?" he grumbled, shooting me a playful glare. Before I could respond, Jared sniffed the air. "Reese? I knew I would be catching flack, I just didn't know it would be so quick." "Why do you smell filthy?" I shrugged, glancing at the quiet television. "Skipped my shower." Nicole muttered a quiet sound of disgust, which I responded with the flip of a finger. Jared growled, lowly. "Why do you smell like a rogue?" I sighed, tilting my head at Jared. "Don't make me command you." "Reese." I held back the growl I felt rumbling within me. I bumped into a little rogue situation. And why didn't the border control notice the rogue entering the territory? I huffed in irritation. He knew the answer, he just wanted me to ask it. In this second, Mace, the beta of the pack and one of my closest friends, walked in. Because I was relaxing outside of the border, Mace stopped in his steps, narrowing his eyes at me. "Are you serious?" Mace groaned in irritation, flopping next to Jared, jogging him slightly, which caused him to nudge Nicole slightly. A low growl came out of our alpha. Mace rolled his eyes in response. "Chill out, Wolfie." "Direct that at Reese." I glared at Mace. "Prick." "Reese," Jared began, "you know how dangerous it is outside the border. Why would do such a thing?" I groaned in annoyance, throwing my arms in the air before flopping them back down on my lap. "Relax. I was barely outside of the border anyways." Mace scoffed beside Jared and I sent him a quick glare. "Listen. If I was really in trouble, I would have called for help, you know that." I sent Jared a pointed look. He knew I could take care of myself. He and his father were the ones to train me after all. I am the strong person I am today because of the people I had surrounded myself with within the last few years. "You aren't to go past the border again. Do you hear me?" Jared ordered, his alpha essence seeping through as he sat up straight, removing his arm off of Nicole's shoulder, who then laid further down on the couch, giving me an apologetic look. She didn't like it when Jared ordered me around when she had no say when it came to an alpha's command, and she knew that. Plus, when it came to the safety of people she loved, she knew it was for the best despite how she felt about it. I didn't answer Jared correctly as I huffed, leaning back on my seat with the roll of my eyes. From my left, I heard Jared growl lowly to demand respect. "Don't press me, Reese." I gulped slightly, my eyes flickering back to my alpha. "Do you hear me? You are not to go past the border again. At least not while there is such a high risk of rogue attacks." I sighed. huffing lightly through my nose. Okay. I gave up bitterly before looking away from Jared and instead focused my gaze at Mace, who cleared his throat. As much as I'd love to discipline Reese, I came in for a reason. I tilted my head at Mace, however. He seemed to be avoiding my eyes, as he attempted to face away from. Only looking at Jared and Nicole. What is it, Mace? I questioned. However, he ignored me. Even from a distance. With the help of my heightened wolf senses, I noticed how he gulped with his Adam's apple bobbing up and down. It was weird seeing Mace become a bundle of nerves. He's usually so calm and collected. Alpha. They've said they're on the way. With that statement, Jared's eyes slightly bulged as he stood up straight, leaving Nicole watching me nervously, which only doubled the confusion that I was feeling. What is it? I asked again, getting aggravated slightly with the lack of communication I was getting. Jared sighed. Nicole, lifting her hand up to gently hold on to his elbow. Jared, she called out. Have you not told her? My eyes widened slightly. Clearly, this was about me, so, what didn't I know? Alpha, I called out, standing up straight as Jared turned to me. I could see the apologetic look he had in his eyes despite the alpha emotionless facade he was trying to hold. What aren't you telling me? Who is here? He sighed, his eyes never faltering down. I'm sorry. I didn't know how to tell you. Tell me what? Around us. I could see Mace and Nicole inch further away from Jared and I, as if something was going to ensue. The Midnight Forest Pack are coming. My heart stopped. And in that very moment, I felt like I couldn't breathe probably. From the corner of my eye, I saw that Mace was trying to move closer to me, however I quickly flinched away. Get away from me. I snapped at him. I felt my wolf stirring within me. Mace stopped in his tracks, a puppy dog look in his eyes. You knew. I tilted my head at him, my voice almost breaking as I narrowed my eyes at one of the closest friends I have made in this pack. You knew that my old pack was coming and you didn't tell me. I held my own, taking a breath after I spoke. I didn't want to break down in front of them. I was done breaking down regardless for years now. Reese. I couldn't. I pursed my lips angrily, glaring up at Mace. You knew what they did. I growled. Jared stepped forward, almost guarding his beta, who looked sheepishly at me. How could you? I barked up at him, baring my teeth aggressively. I could feel my wolf shaking within me. Stand down, Reese, Jared commanded, the alpha within him rising. I was no match to an alpha command that I couldn't do anything but listen to his command. Lowering myself down and stepping away from both of them. Leave us, Jared asked both Mace and Nicole, who immediately left the room. Mace didn't meet my eye as he left, however Nicole gave me a sad smile while she exited. I can't believe this, I angrily muttered, turning away from Jared as I stalked around the room not knowing what to do. Their pack was aggressively attacked. They need our help or else their pack would become non-existent. Good, I yelled, throwing my arms in the air as I sharply turned back to Jared. Let them all die. That's what they deserve. Jared gave me a pointed look. You don't mean that. Maybe I do. I narrowed my eyes at him, crossing my arms over my chest. Why didn't you tell me? Because you need not know. I raised my eyebrows at him, which Jared rolled his eyes at. You aren't the beta. Nor are you gamma, so your opinion wouldn't have made a difference. Plus, knowing you, you would have rejected them from the get-go. I held back my growl, giving Jared a side eye, as my tongue ran over my teeth irritation. They are my pack. I have the right to know. Jared's fist hit the table beside him, growling for respect as I raised my voice exceptionally. Unconsciously, my wolf whined, cowering slyly. No, he growled. They aren't your pack. We are. We were the ones that picked you off from the border 3 years ago and gave you the home you've always wanted. You said it yourself. We've been family to you more in the last 3 years than they have been in the past 10. I bit my tongue as I watched Jared's face go red. They need help after a horrific rogue attack. And we are going to help them. Their alpha came to me and alpha to alpha I agreed to help them. He continued, watching as I slowly deflated while he spoke. This isn't about oh she said this or oh she did that. This isn't some high school bully situation. This is lives at risk, and I will not let another pack filled with innocent children fall just because you're bitter about your past. I gulped, my eyes flickering from Jared to the ground. The alpha within him making it impossible for me to hold eye contact with him. Jared glanced me at as I slowly backed away, sitting down on the seat behind me, and sighed, crouching down slightly to meet my eye level. I love you, Reese, and I know you're a wonderful person who wouldn't let innocent children die for the faults of others in that pack. He rested a hand on my knee as he spoke. I continued to look down at my lap. Jared. I gulped. The strength I made in the past 3 years was writhing away. I don't know if I can this. Jared tutted at me. You're strong, Reese. Physically, mentally and emotionally. I looked up to see Jared looking at me, a small smile on his face. Show them what their words did to you. Show them how much of a strong and wonderful woman you have grown to become. Jared cupped my face with both hands and squeezed lightly before pulling my head closer to him and pressing a gentle fatherly peck on my forehead. Alpha Jared was really an amazing person to be around. Despite being an alpha, he never made someone feel lower than or anything of the sort. He never made me feel like I never belonged. Midnight Forest was my past. The pack that ran from when everything became too much. All the verbal abuse I could get from the people in my pack was getting all too much for me and getting rejected by the one person that the moon had chosen for me. I was thrown away like a piece of garbage simply because of the words that people had been feeding him for years. Hayden, the very own other half, chose them over me, and that broke me completely. The idea of being around him, surrounded by people that knew what happened and found it hilarious, pained me. I didn't want that to be my life. When Jared found me, I was broken. I was a rogue and I was ready to end my life. I didn't want to live in a world where it seemed that no one wanted me. I didn't want to become a background character in my own life. Now, I thank Jared and the Golden Redemption Pack for finding me and taking me in. They saw a strong woman and wolf within me before I could see myself, and I will always work to make that up to Jared and the pack. I owe them my life for doing so much for me in 3 years than the Midnight Forest Pack did in the last decade. I said to myself that I would never think about that pack again. That pack didn't deserve me. But at this moment I caught myself thinking about the Midnight Forest Pack. What happened to them during the rogue attacks? Jared saying half of the pack was destroyed got me wondering. Was my brother alive? despite the way he had treated me for years. He was the only blood I had left, and even though I would rather never see him again, I wouldn't want him to be dead. I sighed, pushing back on the chair slightly as Jared dropped his hands from my face. When are they going to be here? As soon as I spoke up, the door swung open to show Nicole and Mace, as well as the gamma of the pack. James. I raised an eyebrow at them as Jared stood up straight, sharply turning his head towards the doorway. What is it? Jared spoke with urgency, his eyes flashing to Nicole as he looked her up and down, scanning her. Are you okay? At that moment, his voice sounded softer. Nicole sent him a smile to ease him, mouthing an endearment his way. Alpha. Mace spoke up, straightening his back as he addressed his superior. The Midnight Forest Pack are here. You can do it. Reese. Be a bad bitch. I huffed as all of us walked downstairs together, Nicole walking right beside me as the men walked in front of us down the stairs. Nicole reached for my shoulder, causing me to look up. Show them what they're missing. She spoke quietly in my ear. Nicole always knew how to make me feel good about myself. Nicole was the first person that I considered to be my friend when I first came to the pack. And by God, I wouldn't be able to find anyone as amazing as Nicole to be my rock here. We soon made it to the door, and I caught myself thinking, how has the pack changed? Was my brother in the first line? He was too young to become beta when our parents had passed. But now that he is old enough, has he taken his rightful spot back? What about Hayden? Had he found someone that fits this needs? Did he finally take over as alpha of the pack? When I had left I was only 16 years old while both Hayden and Lane 18 years old. Meaning that if they were alive, they would be 21 years old. As soon as the door opened, my heart stopped. The first person to see was indeed my brother, Lane. I looked almost the same as he did years ago besides the growing of his beard and his obviously tired eyes. Bags hanging from under them most likely due to all the rogue attacks their pack has been experiencing. The next person I saw was Bryce, one of Hayden and Lane's close friends. When I was back in the pack, Bryce happened to be one of the strongest young fighters he had, and there is no doubt that it climbed up the ladder within the years. Through his shirt, you could tell how ripped his arms had become with the bulged shape they held within his top. And lastly, walking in front of both Lane and Bryce, was Hayden. My breathing got caught up as I finally laid my eyes on him after years. I hated to say it, but he looked gorgeous. He looked more rugged than he did 3 years ago, however it seemed to be doing him a favor. It was a great look. I inwardly growled at my wolf as I felt her purr at the sight of our mate. She seemed to have forgotten that he had openly rejected us without so much as a second look at us. I fell to the back of the line as Hayden and his 2 soldiers behind him follow in his footsteps, greeting everyone one by one from Alpha Jared, Luna Nicole, Beta Mace, Gamma James, and then finally to me. Hayden was the first one to reach me, looking up in shock. His eyes bulged open as he looked at me, his bottom lip falling slack. Reese. At the sound of my name, both Lane and Bryce looked over at Hayden and I, finally realizing that I was here. Reese. Lane choked out, repeating his superiors who didn't know what to say. All the men in front of me gaped at what was in front of them. Me. What are you doing here? I could see from a distance that Lane's eyes held sadness by the way they drooped, or maybe that was the tiredness that was finally hitting him. Before I could answer Lane, I noticed from the corner of my eye that Hayden had lifted his hand to touch my elbow. The connection of skin sent my wolf in a whirl of delight as sparks erupted between us. The first time we actually ever touched after finding out we were mates. As an instinct, I flinched away from his warm touch, the space quickly turning cold. I raised my hand fast and slapped Hayden across the face hard. His head flew to the side at the impact, and I heard gasps from behind both of us as I did so. I felt anger bubbling inside of me as I watched Hayden. I watched as his hands twitch into fists, a low growl coming from his throat. However, this didn't stop me. Not anymore. I wouldn't anyone, especially Hayden, push me around. If you want to keep that hand, you better refrain from touching me with it, I snarled, baring my teeth at him. I felt the alpha essence seeping from him, however it made no effort on me. He's not my alpha. Jared is. I suggest you not do that again, Hayden growled. While his voice caused the wolf within me to swoon, I boiled in rage by his words. You suggest. I repeated. I don't give a fuck what you suggest. You aren't my alpha. You aren't anything to me, Hayden scoffed. You and I both know that's bullshit. My eyes widened as I felt myself going red in anger. I stepped closer to Hayden, my face close to his, as I breathed heavily to control myself. Lord knows what would happen if I was to be let loose on Hayden. He is an alpha, so that wouldn't actually end well for me. Listen close. I spoke low, our noses almost touching with how close we were. I stood slightly on my tiptoes, so I just looked at him eye level. No way was I going to let him literally talk down to me in any way. You mean absolutely nothing to me? I narrowed my eyes at him angrily, before pushing away from me and swiftly moving through the crowd behind him and out of the door. Reese. I heard my name being called by a voice that pulled on my heartstrings. Lane. Being my brother always had a place in my heart, but the thought of being near him again pained me so much with how he treated me back in the Midnight Forest pack. He never attacked me like the others in the pack. However, he let them do what they do, and sometimes he would laugh with him and join them when they would prod at me for their own entertainment. It hurt me that my own flesh and blood would rather be on the side of his own sister's nightmare than his grieving sister. I knew he blamed me from our parents' death, which broke me even more. Lane was meant to be one that lifted me back up after such a loss. Instead, he pushed me further through the ground. Reese. Lane called for me again as I got further away, his voice holding more urgency. However, I continued to ignore him with a heavy heart. I wasn't going to let him hurt me again. I wasn't going to let anyone hurt me again. All these years I grew stronger, and no one is going to push me down in that dark well that I was stuck in for a decade ever again. Not the Midnight Forest pack. Not Lane. And definitely not Hayden. Never Hayden again. I remember the conversation I had with Jared about, and God, I wasn't thrilled with this situation. I continued to growl in irritation as I stomped through the garden, Mace following in tow. From behind me, I could hear him snicker at my dismay. If you don't stop laughing right now, I will happily rip out your voice box and put you on permanent mute mode. I flipped Mace from behind me, lifting my hand up and giving him my middle finger while I continued to walk, which only made Mace laugh louder. Come on. You know Jared only chose you because you're one of our strongest fighters, and Mace jogged faster to catch up with me, nudging me with his elbow before he continued. You got to show these wolves what you're made of. I looked at Mace for a moment, a wide smile on his face as he sent a wink my way. It made me smile unconsciously. I couldn't help but let a smile spread on my lips as Mace spoke and lifted my spirit up. It was the first training session with the Midnight Forest Pack. And Jared, being the annoying older brother he aspires to be for me, had personally decided to make me the leader of the sessions, meaning I would have to spend hours with a pack that didn't even want me and probably didn't even notice when I left. Mace being one of the best people I have ever met, he decided to sit through the training session to watch over me. So I guess it's a plus that I wouldn't be completely alone with these ungrateful mutts. Alright. Everyone line up, I called out. However, I quickly noticed that no one seemed to be listening to me. I looked around and saw that the girls were all huddled up in different groups talking amongst themselves, and the boys seemed to be playfully roughing each other up. Was this their way of training? Mace looked at me for a moment, nodding towards the job as if to ask if he should get their attention. However, I shook my head and stepped forward, ready to get everyone's attention. I lifted my fingers up and placed them in my mouth, ringing out a loud whistle that shook everyone out of the childish actions, their heads snapping towards me. Line up. Now. I yelled out my order and watched as both boys and girls made their way to the middle, and soon enough that formed a horizontal line. I was quick to start up the training, splitting everyone into a ground of 2, and showing them training techniques with Mace, and soon enough everyone was doing their own trainings within their pairs. As I walked through the garden, looking at each pair, I noticed one girl resting on the grass near the front of the garden. Clearly, she decided she didn't need to participate in bettering her wolf. I walked over to her, leaving Mace to continue watching and critiquing the pairs, and cleared my throat, causing the girl to cover her eyes from the sun and peek from one as she looked up at me. Yes. I recognized the girl to Natalia Wilson's. Natalia used to be such a terrible person towards me. She was always the one picking on me and attacking me when I wasn't doing anything. She looked the same somehow. Her blonde was the same cool blonde that I used to envy when I went to school with her, and her physique was still extraordinary. She was always one of best at keeping up with her figure, however she was never too good in fighting. Would you like to explain why exactly you think you don't need to participate in the training? Natalia raised her brow at me for a moment, sitting upwards as she continued to scan me, as if the lights had switched on within her. She gasped and a ghost smirk appeared on her lips. Reese? She questioned, excitement heating off of her. Wow. It really is you. This is where you ran off to then? She giggled, falling down on the ground, and continued doing what she was doing before I walked over, which was absolutely nothing. Not going to lie. You look kinda alright. Finally lost the baby fat. She spoke up, her eyes shut and her hands behind her head. I rolled my eyes. She was always an annoying little girl. I just never had the energy to give her what she deserved. Get up and train. She peeked through one eye again before letting out a laugh. No thanks. Enlighten me, why not? She sighed, lifting herself to sit up again, and looked up at me with an irritated glint in her eye. Lunas don't need to train. I froze. Luna. My eyes darted at Hayden, who was in the kitchen with Jared and Nicole. Our eyes met for a moment, however I couldn't make out what he was feeling through the glaze of the window. He chose Natalia over me. You're the Luna, I repeated, my wolf whining in my head. I held my head high as it soaked in. Hayden had rejected me within a second thought and then chose to make Natalia Wilson's his mate over me. It was understandable how gorgeous she was, but what was all she really was a pretty face. Was that really all Hayden needed for someone to require to be his Luna? It hurt. I was hurt. But I would never show it. Natalia laughed, lifting herself off the ground with grace as she dusted off her leggings before tilting her head at me with a ghost smirk on her face. How does it feel, knowing your mate chose me over you? My eyes widened slightly at her words, which she noticed, laughing at my reactions. Oh yes. Everyone still remembers the time that Hayden rejected you. Hell. I think about it when I'm down. It's a real mood booster. She shrugged with a devious smile on her face. I raised a brow at her, my tongue running over the base of my teeth as I narrowed my eyes at the she-wolf in front of me. I walked away from her, getting a good distance between us. Shift. Her eyes widened slightly, looking at me up and down. You think you can take me? I'm a Luna. She chuckled dryly. Don't be a fool. I shrugged. Show me how much of a Luna you are. Shift. Natalia didn't seem worried one bit as she continued to smirk, shrugging her shoulders lightly as she walked back slightly. You're going to regret that. Instantly. She charged at me and lunged herself in the air, shifting into a red-brown wolf mid-air. She was obviously quick. However, I was quicker as I swiftly turned to the side and watched as she fell to the ground beside me, bumping into a couple of pairs behind us. By now, the pair's training had stopped to watch what was happening, whispers already ensuing. Mace was standing close, however, backed away as he watched me, a ghost smile on my face. He always had faith in me. Natalia's wolf growled at me, saliva dripping from her fangs as bared him, her eyes turning pitch black, which was a sign that her wolf had completely taken control, and it was out for blood. It was my turn. Shift. My skin turning into light brown, almost orange fur. Natalia instantly chose to lunge for my legs, but I was quick to jump up, causing her to miss, and I ended up landing onto her back. Straight away, I bit into her back harshly, which caused her wolf to howl in pain. What Luna is this? She doesn't even smell like a Luna. My wolf wanted to destroy her. My wolf wanted to rip off her head. All she could think of was how weak she-wolf had taken away our mate from us. Before I could make my move, bodies had run from the kitchen and into the garden. Jared, James, Lane and Hayden. Stop this right now, Hayden called out, running between Natalia and I, my wolf inwardly whining as we watched Hayden protect Natalia. Reese. Jared walked towards me, glancing between Hayden and Natalia before he got closer to me. Shift back. Now. I held back my growl. While it was fun to disobey him in private, I would never be the person to disobey him in public in a garden filled with his inferiors. By my alpha's command, I shifted back into human, James automatically throwing a long short in my direction, which I grabbed and swiftly put on. Alpha Hayden. Jared glanced over me before turning to Hayden and his missus. If your pack continues to disrespect my pack, then I will have to ask you to leave. My heart warmed that Jared was willing to throw them out for me, however I pushed that feeling away. This was not the place, nor was it the time. Natalia shifted back behind Hayden, stomping close. It was her fault. She was disrespecting me. She screeched, pointing her fingers at me as someone came over and covered her with a towel. Beside her, Hayden looked almost mortified that she was raising her voice at an alpha of such high power like Jared. That worthless piece of shit was disrespecting a loon. Natalia, Hayden bellowed beside, causing her to jump in the air in shock. Giving a look of disbelief to Hayden, which he ignored as his face turned red in rage. You never raise your voice at an alpha. Do you understand me? Hayden. Never. He roared, his fangs slightly peeking through as his eyes flashed black. He turned to Jared and apologized for Natalia's mannerism before turning to me. Reese. Don't even. I scoffed. Moving to walk into the house, it was obvious that training was very much over. If this was how their Luna treats people, then they don't deserve my help. As I walked past, Hayden grabbed me by the arm and pulled me back. Please. He spoke. Instantly, I ripped my arm from his grasp and pushed him in the chest. No. My voice was raised as I pushed him away. I stepped close to him and pointed aggressively in his face. You chose her over me. Reese. You don't get to fucking speak. I gritted my teeth together as I seethed at the man in front of me. This was meant to be the man I was to live my life with. What a life. Your actions speak enough for you. I wanted him gone. Reese. Please let me explain. I bit my lip, breathing heavily through my nose as my eyes fell from his. The sound of him saying my name almost threw my wolf over the edge, and I felt that she wanted to take control. However, I refused to let her. My wolf doesn't realize the pain he ensued on me. My wolf only knows the connection she has with his wolf. I shook my head. I couldn't let him break me down. I wasn't a little girl anymore. You stay away from me. We will help your pack, but you can stay the hell away from me. I looked back at him and stared him down emotionlessly. I was tired of listening to this man sound like a broken record player. I pushed away from him and walked away, leaving him calling for me, which not only broke my wolf within me, it broke me. However, I continued to think in my mind. He chose someone else over me. Clearly. He wasn't pining for me when I left. I always meant nothing to him. Are you okay? Nicole asked as I walked through the kitchen. However, I didn't stop to chat with her. Instead, I shook my head as a response and left my Luna looking curiously through the window and then back to me as I made it out of the kitchen. As I walked, I heard my wolf growling and whining for me to go back to our mate. To let our mate hold us. But I would never let that happen. Never have I felt his arms around us, and never will I. He has someone else he can hold instead. Natalia, the Luna of the Midnight Forest, was once again causing drama the best way she could. Nothing had changed for her since the past few years. Attacking Reese amused her then, and it amuses her now. Now, was the third time that Natalia was causing trouble with Reese. However, this time it included the Golden Redemption's Luna and Alpha Jared's mate, Nicole. What's going on here? Alpha Jared's voice echoed within the room. All three girls standing in the room. His voice full of authority. I made Reese and Natalia's backs straighten up in respect. Nicole simply looking up and smiling at her mate. Nicole and Jared's love was beautiful to everyone around them. It was a romance that Reese wished she had, but would never voice since being in the Golden Redemption pack. She hasn't looked at a single male. The experience with men in her old pack, despite how small, put her off. The noises had interrupted Alpha Jared as he studied in his office. Piles of paperwork falling in each and every direction. Reese and Nicole had been having a little girl chat in Reese's room. The music being a bit too loud that it had interrupted Natalia, a very short-tempered young woman, clearly. Ask the dwarf. She clearly hasn't seen a real Luna in her life. Natalia spoke pointedly at Nicole, who happened to be only inches shorter than everyone else. Reese's eyes bulged out as her mouth gaped open. Did she not know who she was talking to? Had no one filled in this airy little girl who the real Luna was in this room? Nicole growled at Natalia, gritting her teeth at the disrespectful she-wolf. Jared snarled behind Natalia, gripping her harshly by the shoulder and spinning her around. Natalia gasped, shocked, staring up at the angry Alpha in fear. Learn your place. Mutt. He snarled in Natalia. You don't talk about my mate like that unless you want your tongue cut off. Nicole almost swooned at his threatened. It pleasured her to see her mate protect her, even when he knew she would fight her own battles. Natalia gaped at Jared, her jaw falling slack as she looked between both the Alpha and the Luna who she now knew was Nicole. Jared continued. We are letting you live here. So, learn your place. You are no Luna here. You lost that title after you let your pack die in the arms of rogues. Jared spat in disgust. He almost couldn't look at Natalia anymore. Reese raised her brow as she listened to the conversation, her mind wondering. What did Natalia do that caused Jared to dislike her so much? The obvious decade abuse. Sure. But this was real personal hatred. What did Natalia do during the rogue attacks? You can't speak to me like that. You have no right. Natalia gritted her teeth angrily, color reappearing on her slightly pale face, the fear being replaced with arrogance and anger. Alpha Jared scoffed as both Reese and Luna Nicole watched. Both of them seemed to be enjoying the show as they fell back on the bed overly entertained. When you're on my territory, I can speak to you any way I desire. We have a Luna here, a true Luna. It's time for you to learn your place, and if you don't then the door is only steps away. Natalia roared in anger. Watch when I tell Hayden about this. You're asking for a war. What was meant to scare the Alpha in submission only tickled his bones as he dryly laughed in her face. You barely have enough pack members for a Christmas dinner. Hayden's pack needed the Golden Redemption in order to survive, and Jared knew that they needed his pack, so anything Natalia could say was simply an empty threat to him. The Midnight Forest pack weren't even a match for a group of misleading rogues. They had no catch if they ever come for the Golden Redemption. The way Natalia is preaching. The chosen Luna huffed angrily, before stalking off. Alpha Jared turned to the mischievous Reese, somehow causing trouble when she isn't even looking for it, and couldn't help but let a smile spread around his face. Stop causing trouble. He sounded amused as Reese threw a pillow his way, missing him by seconds as he swiftly dodged it. Letting the door behind me take the impact. It was around noon when it happened. When then anger clouded Reese completely. No one saw it coming. Not even Reese. As usual. While Reese walked about, she was closely being followed by her brother Lane, who had his Alpha Hayden and Reese's desired mate right beside him, both of them trying to find a way to get Reese to talk to her. However, Reese was constantly covered by the people around her. Everyone in Golden Redemption loved Reese, and they protected her like she was their own. Lane had wanted to talk to her ever since he laid eyes on her the first day he came to the pack. All he had been thinking of in the past few days was how he wanted to apologize. Ever since Reese ran from her troubles, Lane had been locked in his little sister's room and sat there slowly writhing as Reese's scent was washing away in the atmosphere, while he could go find her. The note she left on her pillow before her departure stopped him. She didn't want him to come looking for her because she wasn't lost. She was going to find herself, which she couldn't do being stuck here. Lane knew how she was being treated throughout the decade and he was too hurt to stop it. Now though, he beats himself up for it. And hated the way that his wolf hated him for what he did to Reese. I wasn't even thinking when he rejected her. He thought he could reject her while being young, and then when he was ready to go back to her. He never expected her to leave that very day. He never forgave himself for the way he acted and he wanted a chance to redeem himself. Too bad Reese was not having it. Reese was in the dining room, laughing with Nicole and the other woman within their close-knit circle, Mace's sister Millie and James' mate Kate. She was so engrossed in the conversation they were having that she didn't notice Natalia strolling over with Reese in her sights. The chosen Luna walked past, purposefully jogging herself and slipping her drink all over Reese. Reese jumped up in shock, rage bubbling inside of her as she noticed Natalia standing over her. Oops. My bad. Natalia trailed on, holding in a belt of laughter. Reese couldn't believe how childish she was being. Good thing for Reese is that she fights with her strength, not the soft drinks available in the kitchen. Reese thought. Why not? As she walked over to the immature young woman, lifting her knee in order to connect to her stomach, causing Natalia to double over in pain. Oops. My bad. She mocked, an emotionless look in her eyes, as a smile spread on her face. Natalia snarled angrily, lifting herself up off the ground and turning to one of Golden Redemption's most fearless and strongest warriors. You think you're so amazing, that you're a changed person. Reese's smile fell as she watched Natalia. Choose your words carefully. She barked, but Natalia ignored. Under all this bullshit facade, you're still the same pathetic little girl that got your parents murdered. Natalia empathized every word, watching for Reese's reactions, but she was still as can be. Reese knew Natalia was trying to get a rise out of her. She wasn't going to get in trouble over someone as childish and as attention-seeking as Natalia Wilson's. There is no surprise that Hayden rejected you on the spot. He knew he could never love someone so pathetic. He was never made for you. The only thing made for you is the 6-inch grave we've got you ready right next to Mother Dearest and good old Daddy. Natalia spoke smugly, looking Reese. However, Reese couldn't see her. All Reese could see was red. The words Natalia spoke were seeping through. She brought up her mate, which caused her wolf to get thrown in a bundle of rage and bloodthirsty emotions. The she-wolf hadn't completely shifted. However, her claws happened to be coming through her nails, with her hand lifting up in the air. Reese had never felt such rage before in her life. She couldn't even see what she was doing. She wanted to stop, but she had no control. The shrieks that came from Natalia jolted Lane and Hayden, both of them running to her rescue. Both strong wolves had wrapped their arms around Reese in an attempt to pull her off while she scratched Natalia's face harshly. her claws digging into the woman's perfect skin. "Let me go," she roared, her voice rough and low as if she was being possessed. The people around them that were once enjoying their lunch were sitting there shocked at what they were witnessing. Alpha Jared and Beta Mace had ran up. The Alpha automatically going to his Luna, Nicole, who stood her with her hand covering her mouth in shock. She had never seen Reese like this. No one had. Reese threw her hands behind both Lane and Hayden, her claws slashing both their necks, causing them to let go and cry out in pain. In instant speed, Reese launched herself at Natalia, her hands gripping tightly around her neck, making it impossible for her to scream. Reese. Suddenly, she heard her name being called by a familiar voice, her best friend, Mace, breaking her from her devilish thoughts. The red from her sights drained and she could finally see what was happening. A gasp escaped her mouth as she quickly let go of Natalia, who scurried off with tears overflowing her bloodshot eyes. "What?" She stumbled back, tripping on her own feet, and fell to the ground. She turned on the floor to see both Lane and Hayden laying on the ground, clutching their necks as blood seeped through their fingers. So she didn't know what to say. They would heal, obviously, but that wasn't the point. All she could think was, what just happened to me? A question no one could answer. At least not yet. I growled in annoyance. "Leave me alone." I snapped at Hayden behind me. "I'm so close to slicing your throat with my claws." I turned to narrow my eyes at the wolf behind me for a once, quickly getting furious. For the past few hours, he had been following me around everyone, as if he was watching over me. I didn't need him to be watching over me. Someone might have to look after him. If he continues, I've ready to wring necks. "Like you could do that," H scoffed, a smirk stretching on his face. Something I had seen in a while. My eyes widened slyly at his newfound confidence to talk to me, trying to crack jokes with me like I was going to entertain it. I almost did. Didn't I? I brought up, my mind flashing back at the incident between Natalia and I almost slashing Lane and Hayden dead. If I had lashed their necks harder, then they would have bled out. Thankfully, I hadn't done too deep, and both wolves managed to heal. Despite the hatred I held for both of them, I didn't wish for them to die. I didn't know what that would do to my wolf. Losing both our mate and our brother, that would surely send her over the edge. Even after everything that happened between us all, deep down my wolf still loved them both, and their wolves loved us back, despite what their human side believes. Hayden followed me through the upstairs, and I paused when I made it to the top floor, spinning on the stairs to face him so close I almost fell and pushed him with me. That would have been embarrassing. Hayden's eyes widened, looking at me in shock before I spoke. "You aren't allowed on this floor. This floor is only for higher tier members of the pack. I'm an alpha." He spoke pointedly. "You barely have a pack to be an alpha to. So give it a rest." I rolled my eyes before turning away and walking into the living room, plopping on the couch. It was obvious that Hayden wasn't going to go anywhere, and I didn't have the energy to do anything about it. Plus, my wolf seemed to enjoy getting so near our mate, and while that irritated me, it warmed me slightly knowing that my wolf was content at the moment. After leaving the Midnight Forest pack, while my wolf was elated that we were finally leaving that wretched pack, We were leaving behind the man we were destined to be with, and that broke my wolf. One of the reasons that I was so ready to leave this world after running from the pack was due to the fact that I didn't have my wolf as company like other time rogues. After running, my wolf withered away in the back of my head and left me all alone. Maybe as a punishment for leaving my other half, however, my wolf couldn't understand that Hayden had already left me, rejecting our destined love before it even began. It took weeks for my wolf to come back. And even though she did, she was never completely content with what was happening. The only time, since leaving, that my wolf was happy was the second we laid eyes on Hayden, the day he came to the Golden Redemption Pack. Hayden sat next to me, and while I chose to ignore his eye, I could tell from the corner of my eye that he hadn't stopped looking at me. After what seemed like endless minutes, I let out a little growl, snapping my head to look Hayden in the eyes. "What?" I snapped, gritting my teeth. I couldn't even relax in my own home. Hayden didn't stop looking at me, and I noticed that there was some sort of debate in his eyes, causing me to furrow my brows together as I awaited his response. "What happened to you?" His husky voice was almost a whisper, and it was strange to hear someone with such authority and power sound so so weak. I raised an eyebrow. "What do you mean, what happened?" "Life happened. I grew up," I scoffed, looking away from him, which caused my wolf to whine. She liked the eye contact. "Did I do this to you?" I turned to look at him, away to see him with a look for despair and disbelief in his eyes. "Did he do this to me?" "Yes. But I was never going to admit it." I rolled my eyes. "Get over yourself," I scoffed before looking away. "I've told you. You're nothing to me, Hayden." "That's a lie," I growled lowly at his response. "Have respect. You have a mate." "Yeah. Yo. Natalia is your mate." I cut him off, sitting up straight in annoyance as I faced him straight on. I pointed my finger at him. "Chose what you wanted, and you chose Natalia." I spoke clear. "You made your bed. Now lie in it." Hayden breathed heavily, trying to keep his cool. I knew that raising my voice even slightly at him was raise a reaction by him, but it was clear that he was trying to hold back. "I'm just wondering," I added. Hayden's head tilted slightly as he waited for me to finish. "Why doesn't she smell like a Luna, if she's your chosen mate?" When someone chooses a mate, after the mark and the mating ritual, their scents are mixed together, and depending on the status of your wolf, that also affects your scent. If Natalia was a Luna, regardless of whether or not she was destined or chosen, she would smell of a Luna, much like Nicole and Hayden's mother. "I've never marked her. She's not the official Luna." My head snapped to him. My mouth let ajar as my brows furrowed together. "But she said she's the Luna," Hayden scoffed, rolling his eyes. "She says that because she likes the sound of it. But everyone knows she isn't Luna material, nor will she ever be." He sounded as if he didn't even like her himself. "Why do you even let her, though?" He shrugged, avoiding my eye. "I like the company. It's lonely being the alpha all by yourself. Whose fault is that?" Before I could respond, a pack member ran through the living room, their eyes landing on Hayden and I on the couch. His breath was staggered. He clearly had been running a long while. Finally, he caught his breath. The word coming out of his mouth almost regretful. Rogues. My eyes widened as both Hayden and I launched ourselves off of the couch, racing to the woods outside of the garden. The sight in front of me was overwhelming. However, not in a horrifying way. There were rogues already dead on the floor. Most of them happened to be dead on the floor with only around 10 of them left and still fighting. It confused me as I looked around. It seemed as if they weren't even trying as they fight. Many of the pack members hadn't even shifted as they fight and killed the rogues with ease. The rogues basically running to get their necks snapped. I felt myself freeze when I realized what was going on in front of me. It was a warning. The rogues clearly had no training and they weren't any match of this pack. They knew that. From the corner of my eye I noticed a single rogue speeding my way, however before he could get to me, he launched up, completely missing me. When I turned, I noticed that the wolf was actually aiming for Hayden. It rogue growling as it attacked the unexpecting alpha. Obviously Hayden had no trouble throwing the rogue off. However, watching the rogue attempt to attack Hayden in any way for some reason sent my wolf in a fit of rage. The mate bond between us had been growing with how close we were recently, despite myself wanting differently. In a pit of rage, I charged at the rogue before Hayden could do anything, ripping its head off without a second thought, before kicking the loose head in the air, like a rugby ball. Another rogue charged in my direction, and whether or not it was going for me, I wouldn't know because my vision suddenly blurred again. Red filling my vision. This feeling was quickly becoming a regular occurrence. My wolf howled. I felt her stir within me, even she didn't know what was happened, and it put fear in both of us. I didn't know what to do. I couldn't take control. I couldn't even see anything. My vision was red and all I could hear was howls. It was as if I was blocked out from everything. And then everything went black. My eyes flickered open. The first I see are lights that instantly blind me as I try to see. I flinch away from the light, squeezing my eyes shut from the sudden shine. By my left, I heard movement. She's awake. I heard a familiar voice speak up, soon greeted by more rustling around the entire room. Reese. I heard a hand touch mine as I attempted to flicker my eyes open again. This time I was slow with it, peeking through the bright lights. In front of me was Mace, who had his hand placed on mine as he looked nervously over at me, his face laced with worry. Reese. How are you feeling? Peeking around the room, I noticed how full the room actually was. Surrounding me was Mace, Jared, Nicole, James, Kate, Millie, Lane and Hayden. Various looks amongst them all. Oh, my God, Reese. Nicole pushed Mace out of the way, throwing her arms over me and taking me into a tight embrace. My brows almost automatically furrow as I awkwardly patting her on the back. What happened? I spoke up after Nicole finally pulled away, backing into Jared's arms. Mace rubbed the back of his neck as he looked around. Guys. Everyone seemed to be quick. No one didn't want to say anything. Guys. What the hell happened? I sat up straight on the bed, pushing the covers off of me. Mace and Jared tried to stop me. However, the covers were already off of me, my heart stopping. The clothes I was wearing were red. covered completely in blood. I gasped, my hand automatically lifting to cover my mouth. I opened up at everyone in front of me. You went crazy. Lane was the one to break the silence. Everyone from the Golden Redemption pack within the room sent him a glare, with Nicole voicing her irritation. What? You were going to lie to her or something? Lane scoffed, rolling his eyes at everyone before looking back at me. It was weird having Lane being the only one telling me the truth. What are you going on about? What do you mean crazy? This time, Jared finally spoke up, clearing his throat. During the rogue attack today, your eyes went red and you went crazy. Lane cut in, causing Nicole to slap his arm with a growl. No one interrupts her man. Lane narrowed his eyes at her for a millisecond before rolling his eyes again. Stop wasting time. He pushed his way to the side of my bed and in seconds he was in front of me with his face inches from mine. You went crazy in the woods and killed every single rogue you got your eyes on, and then you almost killed Natalia again. Natalia. My brows furrowed. Why would I try to kill Natalia? He gave me a pointed look which I brushed off. She ran to Hayden to see if he was okay and you went mental. Almost ripped her head off like the 5 other rogues you did it too. Nicole piped up, her eyes flashing between Hayden and I. I looked towards Hayden to see him looking back at me, a small smile on his face that made my wolf purr in delight. Before I could say another, Jared pushed forth. Now Reese, make sure you are all right, and then we can all meet in my office. He cleared his throat, beginning to walk out to door with his mate on his arm. You have to discuss the rogue attacks. Sat in Alpha Jared's office was myself, Mace, Nicole, Lane, Hayden, and sadly Natalia. My brows furrowed as I watched her inspect her manicure. Why was she even here? She wasn't a true Luna. Nor was she a chosen Luna. Hayden had even told me myself that he hadn't marked her and she didn't hold the title of Luna. So why did she think she could sit here and listen to disclosed pack information? And why was Hayden allowing her to do so? Jared cleared his throat, sitting down in front of his desk with his mate sitting beside him. A seat for herself. Before he began. It is clear to us now that the rogues that attacked us earlier came for a reason. It had been set up as a warning to the pack. It was clear by the way the rogues weren't trying to fight, and soon were hesitant with their movements. They were all young and untrained. However, an attack is an attack. We fought. We won. But it won't be the first time. Everyone in the room had a hard look on their faces. And the look of brave wolves, because we all knew what that means. We were in a dangerous position. Natalia huffed irritatingly, crossing her arms over her chest as she glanced over to Jared. We came over for help from the rogues, but looks like you have your own rogues to deal with. How are you planning to help us if you can't even help yourself? Your warrior over here. She pointed towards me. Almost killed me, and if it wasn't me it could have been anyone from your pack. How do you expect to protect your own pack if you can't even control it properly? She snarled, narrowing her eyes at me while her words were directed to Jared. From her side, Hayden growled lowly. Stand down. Natalia. I raised an eyebrow at the young she-wolf. We are in a meeting and you want to have a playground fight. I sighed, my head pulsing with mild irritation. I lifted my hand to my head in order to ease the pain I got from listening to this child yap day after day since the midnight forest came. Grow up. I groaned before looking back at Jared, giving him all my attention. Natalia. He turned his head to her. His eyes sparkled with irritation and anger as he looked upon the woman that couldn't keep her mouth shut. Day after day she was proving disrespectful even to the alpha of the pack, willing to help them after a terrible ordeal. Watch your words. Just because you're the Luna of your pack. She isn't a Luna. Hayden cut in, giving Natalia a quick glance before looking back at Jared. I'm so sorry for her constant disrespect, Alpha Jared. She will be punished for it. Both Jared and Nicole's eyes widened and shook. A quick glance shared amongst both of them. Natalia gasped beside Hayden, slapping his arm. Hayden. He sharply turned to her, baring his teeth as he growled. Touch me again, and you'll lose that hand. Hayden. She spoke, her voice small. You have no voice here. It's time for you to know your place. Her eyes widened and she reached for his arm, however he moved away from her reach, his eyes almost like daggers as he stared down at her. You are no Luna. Now get out. Days after the rogue attack, I stood in the training room as I threw punches at the deflated bag in front of me. We really needed to get a new one, I thought as I watched sand drain from the bag. Mace was being the amazing friend he was and took over for me when it came to training the helpless midnight forest pack, while I trained myself them in the garden, while I stuck myself in our very own gym. Each blow had more and more force, my mind wondering as I did so. The thought of rogue attacks happening terrified me. It brought me back to the past, which was never a good thing. I squeezed my eyes shut as I continued to swing at the bag, while the midnight forest would say differently. The reason for my parents' death was due to a terrible rogue attack that happened over a decade ago when I was only 6. As a family, we had gone on a run, and I was so energetic and young that I ended up running off and finding myself outside of the border. Both my mother and father didn't notice. They were too busy telling Lane off about something. I wouldn't know. I was only 6. I barely understood what was happening around me. All I saw was Lane, a 9-year-old boy, getting a stern telling off from the parents, and I wandered away, bored by the entire situation. I didn't realize that I had gone over the border until I heard a deep growl from behind me. It was 4 different rogues watching me, as a 5th one was slowly coming over to me as if they were stalking prey. My parents had noticed that I had wandered away, and when they found me surrounded by rogues, my father had lunged at him. However, 5 bloodthirsty rogues happened to be too much for my father. After watching the love of her life get ripped apart, all my mother saw was red. She ran into the pile and managed to rip apart 2 of the rogues until they managed to overpower her. I couldn't watch. My tears were blinded, my tears as I ran away from the scene. I didn't see one of the rogues lunging over to Lane, however, before they could reach him, the Alpha had appeared, followed by his warriors. The border control must have heard the cries and alerted the Alpha. That day I lost my parents. And in a way, I lost everyone else as well. Even though I was so young. They blamed the little pup that walked off without supervision. If I hadn't walked off, the rogues wouldn't have been able to surround me and my parents' paternal senses take over and give up their lives for me. I fluttered my eyes as I huffed, pushing off of the punching bag, my eyes slightly moist as they watered. I sniffed, ripping off my gloves and throwing them on the floor. I sighed, moving to leave the room, but then jumped in shock, a gasp escaping through my lips as my heart skipped a beat. For fuck's sake. Hayden. I yelled. My hand on my heart as I tried controlling my breathing. Hayden sat there on the side, watching me as I trained. For how long? I wasn't sure. I was too engrossed in my thoughts that I hadn't smelt him come in, and I didn't even feel how content my wolf felt in this moment. What the hell? I snapped, ripping my earphones out and put them into my pocket, narrowing my eyes at the peeking wolf. He leaned on the bench, almost scanning me as he watched. You have good technique. I squinted my eyes at him. What do you want? He shrugged, lifting himself off the bench. That is a very loaded question. I huffed through my nose as I crossed my arms over my chest, avoiding eye contact as he walked closer to me. We've discussed this. He shook his head at me, his eyes lowering down to meet mine as he got closer. He was a good few inches taller than me. Being so close to him made my wolf yip in joy, my eyes flickering up and down his face, scanning every feature. No. His warm breath hit my face, my wolf yearning to inhale. However, I refrained. No way was I doing that. You said what you wanted to say, and I listened. Now, it's my time. I held my breath and I watched him speak, huffing lightly through my nose as I thought about it. Was I really going to listen to him? Did he even deserve that? We need to have a proper conversation. Reese. I rolled my eyes, backing away slightly to create distance between us. Being so close to him was making me feel almost intoxicated. I bent down and grabbed the punching gloves I threw off and walked around Hayden, placing the gloves in my cubby. You had that chance 3 years ago, I pointed out, looking through the mirror in front of me to see Hayden turn to me. He looked clearly frustrated. It made me slightly proud. I could affect him so easily. You can't hold me for what I did from something I said in a brass moment at 18. Hayden exclaimed, throwing his arms in the air and letting them fall back in frustration. I turned to face him and crossed my arms, tilting my head at him. What you did changed me, and you haven't thanked me yet. He chuckled dryly, his attempt at a joke. Ever since I got to this pack, I have tried and tried to talk to you. I have followed behind you almost every second of the day, and you've ignored every single one of the advances. Let me speak. Speak then. I raised my voice, almost shouting at him. Tell me how you celebrated breaking my heart. I almost screamed, stepping closer to him. You broke my heart within the span of 5 seconds, and you didn't even blink when you did it. I was almost to the point of breaking down in tears, my voice slightly breaking as I spoke, but I continued to hold my ground. I wasn't going to cry in front of him. He wouldn't have the satisfaction of seeing that. I regretted that the second I did it. I was a young idiotic man. Even if I hadn't rejected you, I wouldn't be worthy of being with you. After you left that day, I couldn't stop blaming myself. I saw how the pack were treating you and I ignored it, and you, which I shouldn't have. I may not have participated, but I didn't stop it, and that was wrong, and I'm sorry. As he spoke, he got closer to me with each sentence, and I made no move to get away. I blamed myself for pushing over breaking point, and I beat myself up about it since. I would cry just seeing your room empty, and every day I would think of the chance of you coming back. Each day passing made the chance slimmer, but I never gave up hope that I would find you. He was now inches away from me, his hands hesitantly moving to touch both of my arms. I looked in his face. His eyes squinted as he tried holding back his tears. However, His eyes had turned to a pool of salt water. A few drops falling from the corners of his eyes. "I'm begging you. Now that I have finally found you again. I am begging you, please. Forgive me. Give me a chance. I was stupid and immature back then, and all I could think about was myself and my freedom, but you are my true freedom. I don't want to risk losing you. Not again, Reese, I beg. You're all I want." His hands lifted up to my face, cupping my cheeks as he inched closer to my face. I knew what he wanted to do. "I need you." His voice barely a whisper as he leaned down, gently pressing his lips on mine with his tears wet with tears that had fallen during his speech. The kiss was short and sweet. Hayden pulling away from me, as I stood there frozen. "Give me a chance." With all my heart. I didn't know what to do. It had been weeks since the conversation between Hayden and I, and my mind was still a bundled mess. His speech hit me hard. But anytime I felt myself slowly feeling something for him, I remember who he had treated me in the past. How he easily chucked me away the second he saw me. His words warmed both myself and my wolf. But I wasn't ready. I built 3 years of my life off of the rejection I felt from both him and the midnight forest. What would I be to throw that all away? I was ripped from my thoughts as I laid in my bed, my arms behind my head as I relaxed early in the morning from the shout of someone in the hallway. Rogues. This was becoming more and more regular even since the warning attack weeks ago. I groaned, jumping up from the bed as I ran downstairs, quickly seeing the scenes in front of me. Even since the warning rogue attack weeks ago, there have been attacks non-stop, however none were even remotely challenging, however slowly but surely they were bringing in stronger rogues. The recent attack saw the pack lose 6 pack members, and while 6 doesn't seem like a lot given how big both Golden Redemption and the Midnight Forest pack are combined, a life is a life. We all felt it when those pack members died. I froze as I witnessed the fight in front of me. Never had it been so horrid as it is right now. Bodies were everywhere, and I couldn't tell if they were rogues or pack members. Why all of a sudden had they gotten increasingly difficult to beat today? It was clear that the rogues had definitely gotten stronger. There was screaming, crying, and loud growling, filling the entire land. The garden filled with bodies alive and dead, spilling into the woods. Women and children had been ushered out of the way, rushing them to the panic rooms. Some women had ripped themselves out of the arms of the fellow pack members, running over to the corpses on the floor, most likely their mates. My heart ached as I heard the cries of broken mates, feeling their bonds getting ripped from him as they watched the light fade from their lovers' eyes. I looked away, squeezing my eyes shut for a moment. I couldn't watch. It was too painful to witness. Children were crying, watching as their fathers were being brutally murdered, and they were witnessing their own mothers, the only person who could comfort them in this time of need, breaking down and begging for their own comfort from their mate themselves. It was heartbreaking, and it hit me hard. I knew how they felt. The children were being pulled away by pack members, screaming for their mothers who were being preyed on by rogues. I hated rogues. From the corner of my eye, I noticed a rogue preying on an unexpecting woman who was bent down, bawling her eyes out as she held on to her mate's body. "Richard. Richard. Please wake up," she bawled, shaking the corpse. I growled as I watched Rogue charging at them. I launched myself up, shifting in mid-air, and landing straight on the Rogue. In comparison to their wolf, mine happened to be much bigger. I growled at the Rogue viciously, lunging myself quick and grasping its neck with my teeth. pulling their head straight off. I spun on my feet, watching as more and more rogues came straight at me, charging with murder in their eyes. I was their prey. A rogue charged at me, their fangs sharp as they took a bite at me, narrowly missing my leg. I swung my body towards the wolf, gripping them by the neck by my teeth and swinging myself into a circle, knocking out the remaining rogues around me that attempted to gang on me. I roared, throwing the wolf at a nearby tree before following in that direction, jumping on top of the rogue and proceeding to rip them into shreds. I seethed as I backed away from the dead rogue, my eyes scanning to see how was around who wanted a piece of me. From my left, I noticed Hayden was fighting off a rogue. He was aggressively ripping through the rogue's body before launching himself onto another one. I had to say, it was attractive and it made my wolf shiver, seeing her mate show his strength. I pushed my own wolf's thoughts away. It clearly wasn't the place. Nor was it the time to gush at our mate. A mate we still aren't even sure about. The battle in front of me soon ended. Thankfully, the Golden Redemption was once again undefeated by the rogues. However, we didn't do that without some type of lost. We had lost around 70 pack members, and while the pack is still quite large, 70 people were still a lot. 70 family members had been murdered. Different families, which both the Golden Redemption pack and the Midnight Forest pack have been broken apart due to the rogues. Children have been orphaned. I had to hold back tears as I watched children cry. Even elder children break when they see their parents' bodies scattered all over the floor, limbs everywhere. I was quick to shift back, grabbing a nearby shirt where we hide clothes in case of scenes like this. The shirt was long enough to fall just up to the back of my knee. "Nicole," I called out, watching as she walked out from the kitchen door, her eyes scanning before meeting mine. She lunged herself from the doorway, sprinting across the garden before throwing herself in my arms. We both hold on each other tight, afraid to let out. I felt the fear bubble inside of me, the thought of losing someone close to me again. "Thank God. You're okay," Nicole cried out, pulling away, and I could see that her eyes were slightly bloodshot. With her arms still around me, she turned her head and began looking furiously around. "Have you seen Jared? Where's Jared?" she asked rapidly. I could sense the fear oozing from her. Just as she said that, Jared, followed by Mace and James, all wearing only shorts, followed out from the woods, and Nicole instantly let me go, launching herself over to her mate while I ran up to Mace, throwing my arms over his shoulders. "Oh God. Are you all right?" Mace wrapped his ways around me, squeezing tight as he sighed. "We're okay," Jared answered, his arms around Nicole as she squeezed her face in his chest, inhaling his scent in order to cool her wolf. Before we could do anything, we found a scream from behind Nicole and I, causing us to turn around sharply to the noise. A woman was running around, looking at all of the bodies on the ground. It happened to be the woman I protected, while she bawled over her mate. "Where is she? I can't find her. Where did she go?" she bawled loudly, staggering around the garden as she pushed over bodies that were piling up. I moved out of Mace's arms, running over to her. "Wait. Where is she?" she shrieked, falling to the ground before I could get to her. I bent out instantly, my arms going around her shoulders, as the woman fell to the ground in a fit of sobs. "Who is she? What is going on?" The woman howled in pain, gripping my shirt as her face was flooded with tears. "Emily. They took Emily," she cried. The woman pushed off my shirt, leaning back as she howled into the sky before falling back down to the ground, her arm gripping her own shirt just above her heart. They took my daughter. Emily Collins. She was a sweet little girl. I actually knew of her. There were clearly many children in this pack. It would be hard to make such an impression on many people at such a young age. Emily Collins happened to be one of the sweetest. As the most adorable 7-year-old girl that this pack possesses. Maybe her name wasn't very rememberable. However, her actions were. She would go up to everyone she saw on Valentine's Day, with yellow roses in her hands, and pass them flowers all day long. She didn't even need to know them. She would smile up to them and give them flowers. Most people knew her for that. They didn't even know her name. I didn't even know her name. She had given me yellow roses ever since I got to this pack. She wouldn't say anything as she gave you a rose with a smile and a nod. Her mother had told me why there were always yellow roses. Yellow was her favorite color and roses happened to be her favorite flower. I don't even think that she knew that the meaning of yellow roses happened to be friendship and appreciation. After hearing her mother's cries and finding out that the rogues had indeed kidnapped Emily, everyone's heads went off. Jared and Mace, along with the warriors, had ran into the pack house, and ever since 4 days ago, they had been trying to find the whereabouts of the little girl. We basically had sniffer dogs out for her. Emily's mother would occasionally walk into the meeting with food and drinks, but I doubt that was the reason she would constantly be interrupting the meetings. She wanted to know if we knew any new information about her daughter. She also gave us a vase filled with yellow roses, and it felt as if the roses were pushing us to try harder into finding her, and that we will. I sat here, listening to everyone speak, while I held a yellow rose in my hand, my fingers running through the layers of petals. Beside me sat Hayden, who felt leaning over to me slightly to see what I was doing. Listen to the meeting, Hayden. I muttered, only loud enough for him, as I glancing back up to Jared, and then back at the yellow rose, my eyes blurring as I zoned out. You listened to the meeting, he retorted. I'm multitasking, I quietly spoke, praying not to interrupt the meeting with our silent bickering. Now, go away, I whispered, turning to him. But I want to ask you a question. I rolled my eyes, leaning on my chair as I placed the rose back on the table in front of me. I turned my head to Hayden. It is not the time, nor is it the place to play 21 questions, I deadpanned. Now, pay attention, we have a 7-year-old to rescue, I pointed out, before looking away from him again as I attempted to give Jared my full attention. Attempted. Hayden didn't stop badging me throughout the meeting, occasionally prodding my life and kicking my ankle lightly to get my attention. In a pit of irritation, my hand flew to his leg to fell next to mine and plunged my claws into his right thigh. Beside me, I noticed how he held himself with class as he held in a whine and a growl. Slightly doubling over, however, covered it by making it seem that he was simply leaning toward for a second. I swear to God, don't do that. That's rude, he joked, wincing slightly as I tightened my grip on his thigh, my claws still dancing in his leg. If you don't shut up, I will happily rip your tongue out of your head. Try chatting shit then, I threatened, narrowing my eyes before pulling my claws out swiftly, wiping on his shorts before retracting them back in my nail beds. I just wanted to know what your favorite flower was. He pouted like a child. crossing his arms over his chest as he leaned back on his chair. My wolf snarled at me for being so horrid to Hayden, but really what did he expect? This wasn't the greatest place a meeting for a kidnapped child to attempt to get to know me. I inwardly rolled my eyes. Suddenly, two pack trackers barged through the door, both of them rapidly breathing. We got her scent. That sent everyone into action rapidly. People going all different directions. Soon after, we found out where Emily was being held. Jared had ordered all warriors to be ready to tomorrow, as after sunset we would be attacking. After the meeting ended, everyone was making their way out, all going to get ready for the attack, when Hayden grabbed me by the arm, pulling me back. "What?" I yapped, ripping my arm out of his grasp. He got way too comfortable doing the same thing to get my attention. Soon enough, my arm would have his imprint on it. "You can't go to the attack." I furrowed my brows at him, tilting my head before letting out a dry laugh. "When did you get a say in what I do?" Hayden narrowed his eyes at me, my wolf cowering slightly. However, I held my own. He wasn't going to stop me from going to the attack. He had no right. "I just don't want you to get hurt." I rolled my eyes at him. "I'm not going to get hurt. I was fine without you here. You aren't going to stop me from helping this little girl." "Reese," I stopped him, placing my hand gently on his arm, a spark running through my wolf and causing her to yip and purr. "It'll be fine." Hayden sighed, quick to give up. I could tell that he was fighting himself on the inside, but he knew that he couldn't push me into something I didn't want. I gave him a small smile before letting go and walking towards the door, leaving him in the room. Before I completely left, I stopped. I kept my body straight, however, turned my head to face Hayden, who looked at me confused as he stopped in his tracks. "Lilies." His brows furrowed further in confusion. "What?" "Lilies are my favorite flowers." "Let me mark you." Hayden piped up, flopping on the couch right next to me, as I got my boots tied on properly. "What?" I was overly befuddled. Even though it has been weeks with him, I didn't know whether I was ready to be mated, let alone marked. Bearing his mark. As appealing as that sounds, I would rather my marking be special. I thought consent was sexy. He joked, throwing his arm on the back of the chair, inches from touching my shoulders. "Wouldn't exactly call that consent." I shrugged, giving him a side eye. It was hardly him asking me, more like demanding. "We definitely haven't got to that level yet." "Yet." Hayden winked at me, which I rolled my eyes at. "I asked so we could build our strength up for the fight tonight. You know how powerful a mate's mark can be." "What about Natalia?" Hayden tilted his head at me. "I'm sorry. Have you seen her around recently?" He had a point. I hadn't seen Natalia in a hot minute. Ever since Hayden had put her in her point in Jared's office, she hasn't tried popping her head out to cause any more trouble. She clearly meant something to you if you even let her get so close that she'd call herself your Luna. Hayden groaned, letting his head fall back on the couch. "I told you. She was there for the company." "Company?" I raised my brow at the man beside me as he spoke. I didn't know someone with such a smooth voice could talk so much shit. Hayden sighed. "My father wouldn't let me be alpha without a Luna. You remember how strict he was about those things." I did remember the way the old alpha Hayden's father used to be. He was the only one that didn't blame me for my parents' death. It wouldn't have been what a true alpha would do. He was very strict on Hayden. I remember overhearing what he would say to Lane when we were young, him ranting to my big brother about his overbearing father. So you just led Natalia on, just to gain a high position in your pack? Hayden looked at me shocked. No. So you do have feelings for Natalia and you're just lying to my face. You need to make a decision fast because I'm not waiting for you to make a decision whether or not you like Natalia or if you like me. You made a choice years ago. It's time for you to make right with it. You made your bed. You choose whether you lay in it or not. Hayden was silent for a moment and I let out a light huff as I laid back on the couch. My attention on the black screen in front of me. I was still waiting for the sun to set. Only moments from now. Shut up. My head snapped to Hayden. A tired look in his eyes as I raised a brow at his approach. Excuse me. Think I must be hard at hearing. Come again. I pressed him to repeat himself and he sat forward, turning his body to the side to face me completely. Shut the hell up, he repeated, causing my eyes to widen. Why won't you understand that I only harbor feelings for you? He asked me. He looked up. And I bit my lips so hard not to gasp. His eyes held angry, unshed tears. The past is the past. Please, Reese, give us a chance. He begged for me. I felt like crying. The fearless warrior, Reese Ford, felt like bursting into tears at the sight of this show of affection. Hayden, I croaked out, holding in the sobs that wanted to surface. It hurts. Hayden instantly started caressing his fingers softly along my cheeks. Let me take the pain away. Let me in. He pressed his lips on my forehead very gently. I couldn't help but nod. Hayden held me in his arms, as I softly let out small sobs. When I calmed down from my random outburst of tears, I pulled away and faced Hayden. Mark me. My voice was barely a whisper, and I knew I had finally let go. What? He stuttered. He held me tight in his grip, searching my eyes for a sign of tease. You said it'll make us stronger. Mark me. Hayden smiled at me softly, before leaning in. I hadn't thought of Hayden kissing me as we still haven't had our first kiss. His lips lightly grazed mine, as if he was teasing. So I lightly growled at me. I wasn't having it. I pressed my lips harder to his, letting out a light moan. Hayden's grip tightened at the sound and he gently nibbled my bottom lip. He pulled away from my lips, only to have he attached to my neck, making me let out a breathy moan. He kissed lightly on the spot where he would mark me, before lightly sucking on it. I let out a moan, calling his name out, making him growl in approval. I felt his canines extending, feeling them brush against my skin. Finally, he bit down my neck. I bit my lip harshly, trying very hard not to let out a scream. It soon became very pleasant. His canines sucked back to normal as he licked the wound, making me let out another breathy moan. Hayden trailed his kisses from my newly bitten mark to my jaw, to my chin and to my lips. Mine, he growled, before kissing me gently, quick to press harder, and he fought for dominance. Before our kiss could get any further, Jared had unexpectedly walked through the room, his essence oozing with dominance and authority. Oh, go Reese, he called out, causing myself to quickly pull away from Hayden, my face red with embarrassment. Of course. Jared would be the one to catch me in the act. Wrong place. Wrong time, people. I laughed at his reaction, while Hayden buried his face in my neck as he softly chuckled. He kissed my mark lightly, causing both my wolf and I to shiver in delight. It's sunset. Let's go. All right. Everyone. Jared hollered as all of the warriors were surrounding outside of the house, ready to run through the woods. As well as the warriors. In front of Jared stood myself, Mace, James, Lane and Hayden. Remember, while the battle distracts the rogues at the front of the house. Myself along with Reese, Mace, Brock, Naya and Hayden shall sneak from the back and locate Emily. Understood. Both Brock and Naya happened to be Jared's most trusted pack trackers since they were trained pack trackers. Not only could they find a scent, they could also hide their own scents to make sure they were undetected. There were a few checks and warm-ups, but after them we were off. When I shifted, the thrill of it all made it feel as if I hadn't shifted in years. The air breezing through my orange-toned fur made me almost swoon at the feeling, momentarily forgetting why I was running in the first place. Behind me was Hayden, his gray wolf keeping his pace slightly slower than me as if to protect me from behind. Soon enough, we had made it to the rogue's house. It wasn't far from the pack territory, which was probably why the tracker wolves found it so quickly and seemed to be only a few miles out of the board. Just hidden quite well. The house looked awful and battered, however, it managed to hold their large structure, and I caught something thinking. How big is this rogue pack? Jared signaled the group of us that he had assigned to go through the back as our wolves all growled viciously before charging straight at the front of the house. The back of the house definitely went with the front of the house, both ends looking worse for wear. One by one, we crept into the house. Once all of us were safely in the house, we all went to the corner so no one would catch us in the middle of the room. We all shifted back, dressing with the clothes we had tied to our ankles. Jared mentally created a mind link between all 6 of us, making sure we were all connected together. We must split up now. He was the first one to speak through the mind link. Since both Hayden and Jared were alphas, they both could be in the same mind link. However, no one in Hayden's pack could mind link Jared, and Hayden cannot mind link anyone besides Jared, but in this scenario, Jared had patched Hayden into the group mind link. Is that a good idea? Naya, one of our best female fighters, asked. Naya happened to be a sweet young woman who had a harsh life in her past pack. However, like me, she was picked up and helped by Alpha Jared and the Golden Redemption pack. We had only found her 2 years ago, a year after I had arrived. And she managed to climb up the warrior ladder. The abuse she felt all those years, she channeled the pain into strength and anger. It is the best thing we can do. It'll be much quicker than all of us together, looking through every room. Mace chose to side with his alpha and slowly but surely got Naya to agree along with all of us. Okay. Jared spoke, channeling his inner alpha. Mace and Naya, go to the right. They both nodded before quickly running off to the right. Brock and Reese, go to the left. Hayden growled through the mind link. I'm not leaving Reese alone. Jared narrowed his eyes at the other alpha in front of him, growling back through the link. It'll only cause distractions. There, thankfully, was a minimal amount of disagreement, with Hayden unhappily agreeing with the decision after I narrowed my own eyes at him. He knew I cared more about finding Emily than I did being together at the very moment. Mind link if there is too much trouble or if you found Emily. Jared quickly added before Brock and I ran off to the left. It only took Brock and I 5 minutes before we found Emily's scent. Then another 5 minutes to find her room, which was surrounded with rogue guards. You go left. I go right. We quickly worked out a plan before knocking them both out from a big blows to the back of the head. It was unnaturally easy to put them down. And while that didn't set well with him, I continued on with my mission. There was no time to stop and think. Brock and I both prepared ourselves for the horror that would be behind the door. Emily could be dead. Hung. Headless. Legless. Armless. Decapitated, sawed from the waist. Viciously ripped apart. Anything. I huffed through my nose, building up the courage to open the door. When I finally did open the doors, the first thing I saw was Emily. I saw her being choked to death. Right in front of my eyes. Little Emily Collins was being choked to death as rough hands tightened around her small neck. I instantly kicked into action, charging at the brood, pushing him off of the 7-year-old and rolling our bodies on the ground. Get Emily out of here. Inform the others. I yelled at Brock through the mind link as soon as the rogue's grip of Emily was released. Without a second thought, Brock ran over to Emily and scooped up the heavily breathing little girl into his arms before speeding out of the room. It took the rogue a while to throw me off. However, when he did, I was slammed into the wall harshly, the action creating a slight dent in the wall. The rogue pulled back, letting my body fall to the ground, but I managed to jump straight back up. You make me sick. I sneered at the rogue, slowly circling him. Stealing an innocent little child. No wonder your own pack left you for dead. I snarled, baring my teeth at the grown man in front of me. He didn't respond to me, only grunted before his hand shot up as grabbed me, pulling me close only to swing me back into the wall. I planned this out. I was going to tire him out. Then I would strike. While I was fast. He was very big and could potentially catch me at my fastest. Is that the best you got? I chuckled dryly, spitting out blood that came up through my throat. Pathetic. The rogue growled at me. Watch your mouth, little one. Still, I wasn't attacking the large wolf. I was going to push him to the edge. Stealing children is low. I spat viciously. But what can I expect? Your pack shunned you for a reason. Quick on my feet, I jumped close to him and mauled his face quickly before jumping back. He stumbled back, grabbing his face as he gasped in pain before looking back at me, growling deep. You stupid bitch. He charged at him at full speed. But I was so quick, moving slyly to the left, making him crash into the wall. He growled at me, baring his teeth, before charging at me. But this time he kept his target line on me. Everywhere I moved, he moved there. He got me in his arms, crushing me to the wall viciously. Even though I was one of the best fighters in my pack, this man was humongous. I felt my ribs break to an uncomfortable position when he had squished me to the ground. He grabbed my neck and started choking me. I quickly kicked him away from his stomach, making him stumble and double over for a moment, almost falling to the ground. You bitch. He growled. I heard the door open rapidly, and on the inside I prayed that it was either Jared or Hayden. Anything that gets me away from this giant. Sadly, it wasn't my day, but it was neither Jared nor Hayden. Get her. The angry rogue commanded, pointing down to me. Just then, I felt rough hands touching my body, as they gripped my arms and legs for no escape. The rogue took out a cloth that looked fuzzy and slightly wet. I then realized what was happened. I squirmed around, trying to escape from the tough holds I am being held at. However, that only made the grips on my ankles or wrists tighter, the grip on my neck that one of the rogues had made it harder for me to breathe. It'll be better for you to stop moving, little one. One of the rogues harshly whispered in my ear. Bastards. All of them. The cloth was pressed against my nose, and almost instantly, I felt myself begin to doze off and fade. I was stronger than this. I shouldn't be in this position. What's happening? I have lost my rough and fearless state because, trust me, I am not fearless anymore. I was terrified. Night. Night. I heard a rough voice say. The last thing I could see was darkness. Absolute darkness. The only thing I could feel was pain. I felt pain everywhere. I ached everywhere. I attempted to open my eyes. However, the weight was too much. My mind was frazzled, and my mind was a bundle of fear and worry combined. What was happening? Where was I? What was going on? The last thing that I could remember was the rogue attack, finding Emily being viciously choked by an enormous rogue. Myself pushing that rogue to a breaking point. And lastly, the room being filled with rogues all going for me. A voice broke me out of my thoughts. But I kept my eyes closed as I listened in. How long has with bitch been out? A scratchy voice asked. Irritation leaking through each word. How much wolfsbane did you use? Does it look like I know? A second voice piped up sarcastically. Just as scratchy as the first. I attempted to mind link my pack, however everything I was sending was hitting a blocked wall. A wall I didn't put up, but neither could I take it down. I'm sorry. This was the first voice again. Why exactly are you here if you plan on doing absolutely nothing? Oh right. Harold wants you, so chop chop. Don't want to keep the boss waiting. I heard a growl through the room. It's alpha to you. Be respectful, mutt. The childish dialogue continued for a few more minutes before the first rogue left. I'm assuming by the intense scrambling of feet hit the floorboards under us and the doors slamming behind me. Suddenly, I felt a sort of prodding on my right shoulder. Wakey wakey. No eggs, and no backy. I heard the second rogue joke around. But I chose not to move, sadly. He continued. Wake up. You stupid little bitch. Oh. You filthy piece of shit. Wake up. Then I felt intense pain in my cheek as the owner of the voice slapped me, making my eyes shoot open as I hissed in pain. Morning sunshine. The rogue smiled sinisterly. I tasted copper. I spat warm blood in his face. The rogue growled at me, wiping the blood off his face, and slapped me again. His claws slightly elongated the nails, skimming my cheek, causing me to hiss. I can easily kill you. Do it then. I croaked, my throat dry as I spoke. Would he really kill me though? Thinking about it, that wouldn't be the greatest thing to happen, especially after I may have finally patched things up with Hayden. Speaking of Hayden, I tried mind linking him through our mate bond after the marking. It had enabled our mind link. However, there was no use. The rogues were clearly using something to block my links. The rogue leaned forward. I could feel his hot breath on my ear as I cringed in disgust. And what would be the point in that? He sneered before he stood straight and turned away from me, walking through the door and slamming it shut. The sound of a lock followed close behind. I wanted to run and scream. To kill. But my arms and legs were chains to the floor with Sliver, the unbreakable. Not only was it unbreakable, but it was also slowly searing my skin. Silver happened to be a poisonous metal to us wolves. I thrashed angrily, growling and howling. I need to get out of here. 3 months. 3 months had passed and I was still in the same position. I've been in the same room for 3 months, whether it was a dungeon, a basement, or even an attic, I still wouldn't know. I haven't been allowed to leave the room for 3 months. I felt filthy. I felt myself getting more and more irritated each day. Why hadn't anyone found me? We had found Emily within the span of 4 days. Why, when it came to me, it did take them months. Maybe even longer. I could be here for years if I lived that long. Beside me, I heard a groan. My mind link still isn't working. The young she-wolf grumbled. Why aren't I healing already? Her name was Nadine. Each month, these creatures would bring a new hostage. There was Jenny, Rachel, and now Nadine. Out of the 3, Jenny has been here the longest. And like me, she has almost lost all hope. Rachel was the one after Jenny. Obviously. She went to the bathroom and never returned. Both Jenny and I believed that she had been murdered, and we caught ourselves wondering, when would it be our turn? Nadine has been here for only 3 days, and she was quickly getting on my nerves. I was quick to realize that after the first few days here, the fear drained from me and I began to get tired of everything. It must sound like I've lost hope. That's only because I have. Oh, shut up. Nadine. Your mind link won't work. For the 10,000th time. Jenny growled at Nadine. Both irritated and tired. Obviously, our mind link wouldn't work. Because every 4 hours, those filthy rogues who stole us from our homes inject us with enough wolfsbane to stop our wolf, which stops our abilities. So we're basically humans. How would you know? You don't even try anymore, Nadine whined. Throughout the last few days with her, Jenny and I had come to learn that Nadine was quite a child, with an immature mentality. It was like being stuck with a 7-year-old child who lost their blanket. I doubt that if her mind link ever worked, that anyone would reply. I sure as hell wouldn't. Nadine. We've been here for months now. You've been here for 3 short days. So I suggest you just shut the hell up, because whatever you try will not work. Don't waste your time. It's useless. I growled lowly at Nadine. I wasn't looking at her, but I could feel her eyes on me, glaring daggers through my body. Before she could say anything else to me, we were surrounded by the sound of bashing and slamming of doors. The walls shook as the sounds were getting louder and louder. Suddenly, a loud growl echoed through the house, a familiar growl, however I couldn't place it. Beside me, I heard Nadine squeal. I knew they would hear me. She beamed, giving both Jenny and I a little side eye, and she tried sitting up straight with her wrists and ankles still chained. The noises got louder, and the growls got longer. It was getting closer, and I was anticipating someone launching themselves through the door any moment now. It wasn't until I heard an intensely loud roar that rumbled through the house, hitting the room we were stuck in, that I finally recognized who they were and what was happening. I felt my body flare up. Involuntarily lunging my body to the front, pulling my arms forward with the chains holding me in place. I knew by now that my eyes had brightened up, flashing flecks of gold as my wolf awakened. Alpha! I roared. However, it wasn't Jared that roared, it was Hayden. What? I roared at Brock. He held his own. You better be joking, boy. I gripped him by the collar and pulled him close, ready to rip him in half. Hayden. Let him go. Jared growled at me, using his alpha voice, which obviously didn't affect me one bit, but it was a cute try. He lost my fucking mate. I can do whatever I fucking want right now. I growled in Brock's face. But my words were directed to Jared. How could this bastard lose my mate? How? It took a while. But I finally let go of Brock. But I definitely wasn't happy about it. I swear to God. I got up in Brock's face. If something happens to Reese, or if we can't find her, I will tear you apart. I seethed at him, shoving him away from me. Everyone was giving me sympathetic looks, which was quick to piss me off. All of you can avert your fucking eyes, I roared, before charging into the woods, leaving them all behind in a fit of rage. I've only got my mate back, and she has managed to slip from my fingers. I was devastated and fuming, and all my wolf wanted to do was rip something apart. Hours later, I found myself sitting in Reese's room. It became reminiscing of when she had ran from the midnight forest pack after the day I had idiotic rejected her. Deep down, I didn't even blame Brock, instead I blamed myself. Even though I wasn't with her when she was taken, I felt like it was my fault. I wasn't there to protect her. When I saw Brock running towards us, with Emily sobbing uncontrollably in his arms, I waited for Reese to pop around the corner. But she never did. I just got her back. There is no way I am going to lose her again. I rested my head down onto the pillows, closed my eyes and listened to the music that rang through her room via her MP3 that I had found. It was intoxicated by her scent. I had listened deeply to the music that was playing, the only thing on my mind being Reese. I could help but think about her. Everything about her. The way she laughs. The way she smiles. The way she is when she's in charge. The way she is when she's in trouble. Just her being herself. She was truly amazing. There was a slight knock on the door, followed by Jared. What do you want? I groaned. I paused the music and sat up straight. Jared sat down beside me, sighing. Well, find her. I know it. I looked at Jared and saw the sadness in his eyes. Reese was like his little sister. He was helping her out when I had broken her. And for that, I owe this man everything. Everything except that is Reese. No one could have her. She was all mine. I know. But if we don't... I paused, looking at Jared. Kill him. He knew I was talking about Brock, but he just sighed, patted my back and then walked out. I will kill him if we don't find my mate. I will. I would kill everyone. It has been 3 months. It has been 3 awful months without Reese. We're not anywhere near finding her. And that is killing me. I haven't killed Brock as I planned. I really wanted to though. Jared had to stop me from pursuing that idea. He said that if I killed Brock, then I would end up losing Reese forever, whether we found her or not. So Brock is free. For now. At least. Hayden baby. Why are you so stressed? I raised an eyebrow at Natalia. It wowed me how insincere and thick this girl truly was. How could she ask me such a question after my own mate had been ripped away from me? Reese has been kidnapped. And you're asking me why I'm upset. So what? It's not like she meant anything to you. Right? Natalia flipped her hair. It was clear how uninterested she was when it came to the topic of Reese. It riled both my wolf and I up completely. Reese is my mate. She means everything to me. I glared Natalia. She is a complete pain in my ass. I cursed myself for surrounding myself with her for years. Maybe it was my punishment for treating Reese so harshly years ago. I thought I was your mate. She whined like a child. Tilted her head at me as she pushed out her bottom lip. I scoffed, giving her a side eye as I walked through my room. You're nothing but a replacement. Don't big yourself up like that. You will never be my mate. You don't mean that. She was clearly hurt. Moving to reach me, however, I quickly flinched away before she could make an impact. No way she was touching me. Actually, I do mean it. I yelled at her, getting more and more angry and annoyed. How dare you think she could replace Reese's space in my heart with her? You're a pathetic excuse for a werewolf. All you do is wait for people to the jobs for you. Never once have I seen you with dirt on your hands. Never once have I seen you in combat at training. All you do at training is pick at your nails like the pathetic girl you are. You're barely a wolf. You aren't worth calling a human even. Because you'd do the same. You cower behind other people. Then you push them around acting like you were born superior. But the bad news is, you weren't. You were born like the rest of us. Thus you should be treated like the rest of us. Do your own dirty work. Learn how to fight. Because of you. Instead of being the Luna to present yourself to be. You let almost all women and children die while you screamed, and locked yourself in the panic room. Yourself. And not anyone else. You are a disgrace. And I have no idea why I chose you to cover the mistake I made years ago by rejecting Reese, but I guess that was simply my punishment. You are nothing. And you need to finally learn that. You have no authority over anyone. You can't take care of yourself. Let alone an entire pack. Oh. That's right, you didn't, and that's why, while I was killing myself on the battlefield for the safety of my pack, you hid by yourself and didn't care about anyone else. We lost so much women and children that day. Yes. We should have had more guards and safety within chambers, but you had a chance to save all of those people. And prove yourself superior. But you aren't. You're a worthless, childish scum of a person. I would never consider you my mate. Ever. Reese is my mate. Not you, and don't you fucking forget it. I growled. My face was no doubt red with rage as I screamed in Natalia's face. Never had I felt such rage in my body as I did now. Watching and listening to her verbally insult my mate. It boiled my blood up to an exploding point. But Hayde, get out. I narrowed my eyes at the she-wolf in front of me. However, she didn't budge one bit. Get the fuck out. I roared, using my alpha command in order to force her out. Which did the trick as she scurried out in a hurry. I rested my head on my pillow, breathing deeply. Why couldn't I say that years ago when I saw everything go wrong? Why did I always protect Natalia from danger? All she does is protect herself and no one else. All I need right now is Reese. But I can't have her. Suddenly, Jared came rushing in my room. What is it? Jared. I groaned, lifting myself up. Jared must have ran a far bit as he was breathless, pausing to compose himself before she spoke. Reese. What? What about Reese? I stood up straight, feeling bile fill my throat as my mind wandered to the worst scenarios possible. Had something happened to her? We found her. Never in my life was I as shocked as I was now. In front of me was Hayden, who was on his knee with a ring. Reese Valentina Ford. No words can describe how much I love you. You're my world. When I rescued you 3 years ago, I was overjoyed. I was so happy. You're a gift from God. And like any other gift, I will treasure you. We've been through the good and bad times, the breakups and the fights. Together. I wouldn't trade you for anything in the world. You're all I need. All I want. I couldn't have wished for anything better than to have you in my arms every single day. I love you. Ree. Will you marry me? It wasn't until I heard an intensely loud roar that rumbled through the house, hitting the room we were stuck in, that I finally recognized who they were and what was happening. I felt my body flare up, involuntarily lunging my body to the front, pulling my arms forward with the chains holding me in place. I knew by now that my eyes had brightened up, flashing flecks of gold as my wolf awakened. Alpha! I roared. However, it wasn't Jared that roared, it was Hayden. I was praying that my pack was fine downstairs, both of them. If anything happened to Lane, Jared and Mace, I would die, especially if something happened to Hayden. Reese. I heard my name being called from behind the door, loud enough to echo through the halls. Nadine glanced at me, eyes slightly wide. Who the hell is that? I chose to ignore her as my eyes pierced the door. I noticed in the corner of my eye that Nadine leaned slyly away from me with a sigh. She didn't even try. She muttered. Part of me felt for the girl. She had been trying endlessly, trying to contact someone to find help, and it ended up my pack coming instead of hers. The noises had started to get louder, getting closer and closer with each second. Suddenly, the door was bashed down by none other than Hayden. Hayden. Reese. Looking at him now, I didn't realize how I'd actually missed him in the past 3 months. His eyes were glassy with unshed tears. By my right, Nadine, I heard a quick ooh of desire. I growled at Nadine, angrily, making her stand down. She narrowed her eyes at me, which Hayden had growled at her for. I was only joking. Don't get your knickers in a twist, she grumbled. Hayden reached to rip the chains that were attaching me to the walls off. No. But it was too late. He always made contact with the silver chains, immediately pulling back, hissing in pain. I let out an involuntary growl at the sight of my mate in pain. Silver chains. I grumbled as I gestured to the burns on my wrists and ankles. For a moment, Hayden's eyes blurred into black as he glanced down at my frying limbs. I could almost feel the rage emitting from his body. Suddenly, the large body charged through the doorway. It was Ron. Ron happened to be the first rogue I encountered. The rogue that Brock and I caught choking Emily from his ghastly large hands, and he was the rogue that kidnapped me. Throughout the months, we managed to learn his name by casually hearing in the wind while he was in the room with us. Back the hell away from the little she-wolves, he growled. However, Hayden paid no attention to his threat as he turned his head slightly to see the rogue, baring his teeth as he growled. Or I'll have to shoot them. Everyone had widened eyes as they watched Ron on the other side of the room. What kind of wolf uses something as human as a gun? Tell your pack to retreat, or I shoot. Hayden growled lowly, slowly stepping closer to Ron. You wouldn't dare, he snarled, his claws elongating from his nail beds, and despite not being able to see his face, I knew his fangs were out to play. Try me, alpha boy. Ron laughed dryly, and instantly Hayden jumped off his legs, launching himself towards Ron's direction. Before Hayden made contact, there was a gunshot that sounded through the entire room, causing everything to almost stand completely still. For a moment, I thought I was dead, instantly looking down to see if I had been shot. Hayden spun around, eyes wide as he was quick to scan me. However, it turned out, Ron didn't shoot me, he shot Nadine. Oh my God! Jenny gasped, the she-wolf forgotten in the background. I gasped, looking beside me to see Nadine collapse over herself, blood quick to cover the floor underneath her. Hayden roared loudly, turning sharply on his feet and charging into Ron, who dropped his gun from the impact, disregarding the weapon in the far corner of the room. They were fighting for some time, and when it looked like Hayden had the upper hand on Ron, the foul rogue leveled the playing field and got the upper hand over Hayden. While Hayden was stronger and faster than the rogue, there was no doubt that the man was huge, and he used it to his advantage. Watching someone attack my mate angered me. I wanted to help, and that's why I realized I could help. Hayden's roar had woken my wolf up. The rush had managed to drain out the wolfsbane that the rogues would inject into us every 4 hours or so. I felt my strength coming back as I watched Hayden and Ron brawl, my wolf's anger building with each blow to Hayden. Ron! I snarled loudly, grabbing his attention. At that moment, he looked over to me, forgetting Hayden for a brief second, and I used that time to pull at the chains with my wrists, and in a swift and sharp movement I yanked the chains off the wall, the silver still clinging to my wrists. I managed to successfully distract Ron, his eyes wide as he watched me rip from the chains, baring my teeth at him as I growled that Hayden had been able to get behind of Ron and successfully snapping his name. I pulled the chains from my ankles out of the wall, and then proceeded to rip Jenny's chains out of the wall as well, the burning of the silver numb due to being chained to him for so long, the wolf within me barely feeling the sting. As soon as Jenny was free, Hayden had grabbed me and thrown his arms around me tight as if I might disappear if he let go. "I'm so happy we found you," he choked out, his head nuzzled in my neck as my scent managed to calm down his wolf. "Never leave me again." I didn't plan on it. That same day I was sent to the pack doctor to ensure that there was no permanent damage to my wolf. While there, the pack doctor noticed some irregularity. It had turned out that I had unintentionally bottled out anger for years, and all of it, along with stress and pain, ended up bursting out and became too much for me when Hayden had come to the pack house with the rest of the Midnight Forest pack. This caused my eyes to blur to red. It was the rage bubbling over inside of me. Ever since then I had not experienced it. However, I always worry when I close my eyes that the next time I open them all I see is red. I love you so much. Reese. Will you marry me? I stared down at Hayden, who was on one knee, a ring in his hands as he proposed to me, and I caught myself thinking about the past 3 years, and honestly, he made it the best 3 years of my life. He always treated me like a queen. Almost like he was continuously trying to make up for your disaster of a beginning. A smile crept on my face as I looked upon the wolf in front of me, making my decision almost instantly. Yes. Of course. I will marry you. It was safe to say he had definitely made his redemption. Happy birthday, Hollister. My older brother yelled at the top of his lungs, enthusiastically throwing an unnecessary amount of confetti in the air as people that had followed behind me woo-hooed. I resisted the urge to groan in annoyance. The only thing I wanted was to sleep, not clean up confetti from the floor for a month. Jack, my older brother, ran up to me. He picked me up from the bed and proceeded to spin me around effortlessly. Despite the fetal position, I made no move to get out of. My baby sister is all grown up, Jack Daniels cheered. Go on. Make your jokes. I sure as hell do. In all fairness. Oh, whatever. There is no fairness. Our parents had screwed him over big time. Baby. I'm 19 years old and you're what? 2. I scoffed at him. Jack rolled his eyes at me, before putting me down and walking back to group of pack mates who stood excitedly at the end of my bed. I looked at my alarm clock and almost let out a snarl when I realized the time. Jack. You woke me up at 4:20. You ass. I growled at him, throwing my pillow at him in full speed, but due to his werewolf speed, he dodged the flying pillow, letting the smack after into the person behind him, who was none other than his mate, Leah. I let out a loud laugh, before sobering and asking if she was okay. Obviously she was. It was a damn pillow, but Jack had reacted as if it as a wolfsbane-laced brick, running up to her and embracing her in a tight grip as if to protect from her other hits. After cuddling Leah to death, making sure all of her teeth were intact, Jack turned to me with a glare before he snapped. You're on the border patrol this morning, so get up. I gaped at him. He can't make me do the patrolling today. The Alpha, aka my father, wouldn't put me on border patrol on my birthday. I voiced my disagreement, only to receive, screwing to be you, ass. Everyone filed out of room before I had bothered to get up. Don't get me started on why there were multiple people filed up in my room at 4:20 a.m. Because I don't know either. This may be a little confusing so far, so I'll fill you in. My name is Holly and Daniel, and I am a werewolf. If you don't know what a werewolf is, catch the hell up. Most people know about the crazy world of werewolves. I can't blame them, however, they don't know we exist. So don't tell anyone. I mean, we would want to know that our semi-peaceful world not only had extremists and maths, but also had werewolves as well as many other vicious and non-vicious supernatural creatures. Yay! Fun!